Ask the Expert, brought to you by Auger Hollingsworth.
And on today's Ask the Expert, we're talking all about cottages and legal responsibilities when it comes to your guests and injuries. Brenda Hollingsworth is here from Auger Hollingsworth this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Great conversation to be had. Let's first of all talk about some claims that typically arise when it comes to cottages.
Yeah, so the most common claims we see actually don't have anything to do with the cottage itself. It's getting to and from the cottage. People tired, hungover, still drunk from the night before. So driving to and from is always going to be your riskiest part of your cottage experience. But at the cottage itself, most of what we see is relatively minor in the sense that it's orthopedic injuries as opposed to major life-altering injuries. Lots of slips and falls, trips and falls, and collapsing decks for whatever reason. People's decks at their cottages tend to have maybe rot or something, and you walk over it 100 times, you don't notice. A guest goes through, or the railing falls and they fall down. We see these a lot.
Okay, let's talk about what happens if you loan your cottage to someone else or maybe even rent it out. What happens then?
Yeah, so it's just like any other residential property. You need to have liability insurance. And if you have a business where you rent your cottage out, like Airbnb or something like that, you need to make sure your insurance company knows. You know, if you lend it to a friend for a weekend, maybe not. But if you are habitually having people to your cottage and you are renting it out and you are earning money, you have cleaners coming in, you want to make sure that you have an appropriate liability insurance policy, and you might want to bump it up, right? Like a lot of people still have $1 million in insurance. $1 million doesn't go that far, right? You know, a young person who can't go back to work is going to eat that $1 million really quickly. So insurance considerations are super important.
Okay, wonderful. You're going to stick around. We're going to continue this conversation coming up in a few minutes. We will be back in just a few minutes.
Ask the Expert, brought to you by Auger Hollingsworth.
And if you would like to contact Auger Hollingsworth, you can give them a call. You can also send them an email, info@ahinjurylaw.com. You could head to their website as well for more information. And we are back with Brenda Hollingsworth from Auger Hollingsworth this morning, and we are continuing our discussion about cottages and the legal responsibilities when it comes to guests and our injuries. So let's talk a little bit about what cottage owners can do to kind of minimize this impact.
Yeah, just like any property, you need to make sure it's reasonably safe for the people who are going to be there. Now, in the case of a cottage, that does not mean you have to pave everything, right? Like, we expect there to be things like tree roots and that the ground is a little bit uneven. That's fine. But what you do need to be careful of are things that would catch people by surprise. Like, for example, if there's a culvert or a ditch that somebody traveling from where you park your car to the cottage at night wouldn't see, like people arrive at the cottage after dark, and you can't have booby traps. And so whether it means making sure there's illumination or, you know, or a hedge or fencing, can be something natural. But you just need to make sure that people aren't going to be caught by surprise by unusual hazards. That's the big thing. So, you know, people often sort of snark back at me, I'm not paving my cottage. Nobody says you should. But just make sure there's nothing that is going to take a guest by surprise. You are used to it. Maybe you grew up in this cottage. You know that, oh, if you go to the right, it's a disaster, but your guests don't. So just audit your property with sort of a stranger's eyes and either illuminate or eliminate problems.
So then problem solved pretty
much.
I love that. Let's talk about watercraft when it comes to things like jet skis or boats that people may use when it comes to the cottage.
Yeah, so this can be a real issue, especially if you've loaned your cottage and the motorcraft come with it. But the one thing I will say is when you buy a boat or you buy a jet ski, the dealer's pretty good about saying, get insurance. But sometimes they come with the cottage. And people think, well, it's got the stickers on it. Do I really need to do anything? And you need to have insurance on your watercraft. I haven't had a ton of boating accidents, but the ones that I've had have been catastrophic and like millions of dollars. And so if you don't have insurance, that's coming out of your assets. Probably that'll be the end of your cottage. So you want to make sure that you have proper insurance. You insist that people wear life jackets. You insist that there's no alcohol. If you're boating at night, you must have your lights on. The most tragic case I have ever had in my career was a boating accident, and one boater was intoxicated, but the sober boater didn't have lights on the boat, and didn't have enough lights.
Yeah.
And it was the worst possible outcome. So you just want to make sure that you take it seriously, and anybody that you give the keys to has their boating license and knows what the hazards are.
And real quickly, can we just talk about family members as well? When family members are visiting the cottage, can they still sue? Yeah, so the people who are in your immediate family, there can sometimes be a bar to them suing, but let's say, your brother-in-law is injured at your cottage, absolutely. You have paid insurance so that if somebody's hurt, they're compensated. And so we need to sort of not make this a hurt feelings situation. We need to make it I'm helping my brother-in-law because he was injured and I want him to be okay. It is absolutely normal and you think of it as an insurance claim. It's absolutely normal for a family member to make an insurance claim against your insurance policy on your cottage if they're injured. And you want that because you want them to be okay. Thank you so much for joining us today on this topic. And of course, if you want to get a hold of Brenda or Auger Hollingsworth, here is the contact information. You can head to their website, ahinjurylaw.com.